Did you ever guess your last five questions on your English section on the SAT exam? Do you always rush through the questions? Or do you feel like there is not enough time? If any of this sounds familiar, I've got you. I have a solution. Welcome everyone. My name is Abdullah and I have personally scored 1530 on my very first SAT exam with 730 on the English section and with a perfect score in math section. Today, I will be sharing the strategies that helped me save time and manage my time on the exam day effectively, along with some do's and don'ts. Specifically, I will be giving you a an order with which you can approach the questions and manage your time more effectively. And if you stay until the end of this video, I will be giving some bonus tips as well. First, writing, then reading. What does that mean? Well, the idea says that you have to solve the writing part first and then the reading part at the end. Okay, how it's gonna look like is something like you go to the very last question, which is the 27th, and you solve backwards until no grammar question leaves. This is often 15th to 17th questions. And after you solve all the writing questions, then you go back to the very first question because that's where the reading part begins. And you solve until pretty much no question leaves. Yeah, this way, the point is you want to solve the questions that require less thinking, less attention, less time first, so that you keep and have more time for those questions that are more challenging and that demand more thinking. Now, I will illustrate how it looks like on the exam day. So here is a practice test, and I'm going to be showing you how it is going to look like once you are on the exam day. Well, the very first thing you want to do as soon as the exam starts, you don't want to spend time and waste time on looking at these questions, but you want to press this and go to the very last question. And here is the writing part. So you want to solve these questions very quickly until pretty much no writing question leaves. This is often 15s. This is also a writing question. And now this is a reading question. So you want to solve from 27 themes to the point where there is the last writing question. In this case, this is 15th one. You want to solve from this to this very quickly, and then you will go to the very first question again. Now you go until the end, pretty much until you solve every question. Here is the preferred approach. And it says you should keep the questions that demand more attention, more thinking for the end, which is the reading part. And as I've just illustrated you how you should go with the question order, rather than just solving questions in a chronological order, you should be a little bit more strategic with how you approach the questions. And if you follow that strategy, you should be able to save much more time and never run out of time again. So here we go into details more. So the reading part, you don't have to solve the questions on the reading part from one to the last question, but what you can do is the idea says you have to keep those questions, those more challenging questions for the end. And my here's what my analysis says. So personally, I solve uh, words in context question very first, and then I move on to central ideas and details, main idea questions. And then I go to text structure and purpose. And then, just before I go to the inferences, I solve command of evidence. And then at the end, I go to the inference questions because inference questions require you more thinking and it requires you to to come up with your own answer rather than just choose one among answer choices. You might say, yeah, there are four answer choices as well in inferences, but it is different. You have to make the decision yourself rather than choose among options. That's why this order is as it is, and each one in the sequence requires more and more thinking as you go from above to bottom. That's why even if these questions might not come in order from first question to fifth to 15th, you should just skip uh, if you come to inference questions on this eighth and ninth question. So here is tip number one, and this is a bonus that I said. You should not use highlighters and notes feature. I know this sounds very contradictory and not something conventional, but that's why it's a tip that works, okay? You should not use then. Why? Let me illustrate again. Now we are now on a question type, and I'm gonna be showing you why you should not use this feature, even if it exists on the exam platform. Well, this is a blue book practice test, and I'm going to be showing you why you should not use this. Okay, if you want to use that, first of all, you have to go here, use your mouse, and tap on this. After you do so, then you go and read this, right? But while you're doing this, you have to do extra work of using your mouse and tapping on that button. You might say it just takes several seconds, several minutes, but the time that you spend on tapping on on that button and thinking what you should highlight, this little this few seconds on each question add up to minutes if you count. So rather than relying on this feature, what you can do is do all these things that you do is highlights and notes in your mind. And that's often the best way. You I mean, I'm not saying that you should not use them, but but if you don't use them, you can save some time. Even a few seconds added up together on each question can give you a few minutes to solve one or two questions when you are running out of time. Tip number two, use the elimination feature. Wait, it's too obvious, right? But it's something very helpful and significantly a time, a big time saver. Why? Because when you're stuck between options, what you can do is eliminate the obvious wrong ones and then save it until the end. And once you are done with all of the questions, you can come back and just have to decide between few answer choices and just means less brain work. And less brain work just means less thinking. And less thinking means less time, right? Then you just spend less time on the question and you don't spend extra time analyzing the thing that you have already done. Tip number three. Okay, sometimes the vocabulary questions have very complex and advanced words that you don't know any word. You have no idea. Some might say you just can infer the meaning from the context, but sometimes you just might come across questions that really mean, that you just obviously have no idea of. So in those times, what you have to do is just you can just infer the meaning from the context. You can do this, but what I would do is if I know that I have to guess this question 100%, I have no idea. I really don't know what to do. Like my answer choice at the end of the day is gonna be a pure guess. Then I won't spend any time on that question. I just mark for review and I move on because I don't want to spend time on the thing that I have no control over. But I just want to move on so that I spend more time on the questions that I can really find out, right? I just don't want to spend time on those which I just do pure guess. But in the first place, you should be ready for any type of question, and I don't recommend in the first place guessing. But if you are ever in this situation, I just recommend that you mark this question for review and you just spend less time on this question but more on those questions that you can truly find. Summary: if you follow the writing to reading strategy along with those three tips that I shared, you should be able to manage your time more effectively and never run out of time again. So, if you find this video helpful, we already have achieved our goal. Make sure to like and share this video with your friends so that we can benefit more students. Your support helps us make more content. Thank you for watching.